So we're ready. It's next.
Calling to order the Governance and Priorities Committee meeting of Monday, March 2nd for the town of Peace River, 5 o'clock. Adoption of the agenda. We have an agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or deletions to that agenda?
An addition.
We have an addition?
I do have an addition.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, under 11.3, please, I'd like to add legal matter update under Access to Information Act, Section 32.
Okay. If there is nothing else to be added or deleted, would someone like to accept the agenda, move the agenda, up to the agenda? Thank you, Councillor Deuce. All those in favor? And that is carried. Moving on to the adoption of the minutes. We have the minutes of the February 2nd, 2026 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting attached. Did we all read those? Are there any changes? And if not, if someone could put forward a motion to adopt the minutes, go ahead.
Sure,
Councillor Forsyth.
I move that council adopt the minutes of the February 2nd, 2026 Governance and Priorities Committee meeting as presented.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion on the floor? And that is carried. Moving on, number 4, delegation presentations. We have none. Comments from the public. We have nobody in our gallery today. Number 6, review of bylaws or policies, and we have the meeting procedures bylaw with Ms. Parsons.
Hey, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, Council. Today before you, you have the council meeting procedures bylaw number 2174. This is a bylaw that council had requested come forward again for review, specifically to review section 6.2, which sets out the order of business for regular council meetings. Looking to move, possibly move item L, comments from the public, to be earlier on the agenda. This is not something that administration necessarily recommends. The public participation section of our agenda is provided as a courtesy, and it is not a requirement under the MGA to provide this opportunity. Many municipalities do not offer this during their meetings. However, there still are some like us that do, such as the town of Hinton and town of Whitecourt. And there are 2 examples, one from the city of Lethbridge, where they put a public attendance disclosure kind of on the front of their agenda that talks about how people can attend, which is simply just attending the meeting, attending a public hearing if there is one, and watching the live stream. But those are your basic ways to connect with council during a meeting. Whereas town of Whitecourt, they allow this public section on their agenda, as we do, but they have actually this public input session terms of reference that goes along with that. So that could be something for consideration if this is a way that council wants to move. Then it just strengthens that section of the agenda and make sure it's really clear so that it doesn't accidentally derail the meeting, which is also a concern. If there's a really controversial topic on the agenda or something like that, it has the potential to derail your council meeting right from the start. And this is something that we do allow in the GMP meetings to be a little bit earlier because it is less formal and it does provide that opportunity to speak with council in advance of the meeting. And then it is also a little bit of a risk to put it first, because by the time something has come to the council meeting, if it's not coming back again, if that's not a planned avenue already to bring it back again. Council should, in theory, have most of the information that they require to make the decision in front of them, or they're going to get it at the council table. But if you put this first, you have potential of receiving information that hasn't been vetted or necessarily had an opportunity for administration to respond to thoughtfully. And so you have the opportunity, one way or the other, doesn't matter, to have that decision kind of swayed by a single passionate individual in that moment. So, and it also has the possibility of becoming a pseudo public hearing. Public hearings are legislated under the MGA of when and where we would be required to have those. And you just want to be careful with towing that line, making sure that we're not accidentally getting into the public hearing side on an item that might be controversial. But in all that, and also, sorry, council does have, under the procedural bylaw, the discretion to alter the order of business for an individual meeting, for the convenience of that meeting. So if there was something, you know, on a rare circumstance that council felt it was really important, to do so, they could move it, for that one meeting. So that is always an option that is open to council. Not that I would suggest we should alter the order, as practice, but on, you know, from time to time, things come up, you have to change the order for the efficiency of the meeting, and that makes sense. So, you know, that is my, my feedback. It's not, and there are ways that we could proceed with this to, make it a little bit stricter and a little bit, making sure that it doesn't derail the formal council meetings if council wanted to proceed, but very happy to take any questions.
Okay, anybody want to speak to this first item?
A good question. How would it? You said it gets dangerously close to a public hearing if we switch the order in the meeting. How does that change that in that regard?
Certainly not saying that it will become a public hearing. You just start to edge on that line, because a public hearing is meant to be scheduled in advance of an item coming to council for members of the public to come and speak and share their opinions and their specific items under the MGA that we're required to have a public hearing about. So it's just, if you're putting the public comment section before the items on the agenda, it's very similar to a public hearing. And then if members of the public are coming in to speak to an item on the agenda, which is the rules under council meetings, that you can only speak to items on the agenda, it just starts to, it's not, obviously, it's not a public hearing, but it just starts to teeter on that line, potentially, depending on the item.
Anybody else, Warren or Council Board?
See if this thing works. Hey. I actually like the idea, just my own 2 bits, but I like the idea of moving the comments from the public to near the front of the meeting. Like the GMP meeting. Now, with the comments about public hearing, I think that's something we could put in, like in terms of reference, if there is a public hearing and somebody was talking about stuff is in the public hearing, it should not be allowed. They can talk in the public hearing because there's a section for that. Also the public in the GMP meeting, it's a maximum of 5 people. 4 people.
4 or 5.
And so many minutes, and you can talk about anything you want. In the council meeting, I do believe it's still 4 people. Certain length of time, but it has to be stuff that is on the agenda. So, and just me thinking out loud, even if you have comments from the public at the beginning of the meeting, I don't think it's gonna, myself, it's not gonna sway a vote, but it gives the public the opportunity to speak to that item before council makes their decision. And one example, we had quite a long meeting. We had a gentleman in the gallery sit there all meeting just to talk. Where that person could have said their 2 cents right at the beginning of the meeting. and the information is brought through and. But with that also being said, it would be up to, Madam Mayor to say, well, yeah, you can talk about, you're the one that controls the meeting, so if the person that's speaking at the beginning of the meeting is getting a little out of hand, you can put a stop to it.
Mhm.
And we've done that before. Anyway, that's just me.
Counselor Erickson.
I'm in favor of Councillor Ford's opinion on that as well too. I'd like to see it at the beginning of the meeting. And I felt bad for the fellow that sat here so long before when he was waiting for the chance to speak. And it would have only taken a couple of minutes for him to speak what he had to say. And instead he had to sit there for a whole time and he was getting irritated in the process.
Anyone else have anything to add? Counselor Deuce.
Yeah, so I noticed the same thing as the other two counselors here with the individual sitting in the audience, which is sort of what speared this whole thing. Yeah, I just want to make it seem like we're respectful of the individual's time sitting here and not having to wait for such a long time as far as what their opinions, you know, swaying my decision or my vote one way or the other. I will still rely mostly on the information that I'm presented in the package, of course, but you know, if they have something to say at the council meeting, I think it's relevant to the conversation that they, you know, that we hear from the public. So I would agree with moving it to the front as well.
Thank you. I have one comment. So if someone comes in here, they want to speak to something on the agenda, but they can't speak to it until the end. When the decision's already made, it becomes obsolete there by the fact that it's irrelevant by that point. So I think we are pretty smart bunch of individuals here at the table. I think that we have enough acumen politically that we know that we can't make a decision on something that's emergently coming forward, but I hesitate to cut off communication with our residents. I think that if anything, we should have more, not less. And we have controls over this. If there's only 4 people that can speak, if they're limited to a number of minutes they can speak, and the topics they can speak on, I struggle to see how leaving it at the end is beneficial, or if they can only speak to items in that meeting that are on the agenda, and they can only speak to it after all those items are discussed, debated, and dealt with. That just seems really like a kick in the. Yeah, it just does, seems like cutting off your nose to spite your face, as far as I'm concerned. I think it should be at the beginning, and if we try it, and I know one comment in the briefing was, we could have 20 people come in here for something, but if we only have 4 that can speak, and if we're in the control of the meeting, I think it's worth, we can always try and go back, but I think not doing something just because something might happen, I don't think is a very great decision, so. That's my 2 thoughts on it. Councillor Ford?
Well, isn't it first come, first serve
Oh, go ahead, Ms. Parsons.
from the sign-in sheet? Like, if you want to speak.
Both yes, are first come, first serve. The sign-in sheet is only for the GNP meetings. Under the bylaw, you only have to do the sign-in to register for GNP. But we can set something similar for the regular meetings. I was just putting my hand up in that case. A proposed motion could be that council direct administration to bring forward a revised procedural bylaw, specifically regarding clause 6.2 of the bylaw, order business for a regular council meeting. And then we can action that and bring forward a revised bylaw.
Okay, I do have another item. Go ahead, Councillor Ford.
Would there also be a terms of reference come back with that, so that, let's say if there is a public hearing, that point in time for those 4 people from the public to speak, whoever signs up to do so cannot speak about what's on the public hearing. There is a time slot in the public hearing for the public to comment on that.
I think perhaps we could do something like that, like a Schedule A, which is, comments from the public. Under the section will be dealt with in accordance with Schedule A, the terms of reference, and then we could have a terms of reference that just kind of outlines how people will be able to address council on a regular meeting agenda, which will be open for discussion. I would think it would mirror White Courts maybe a little bit, but we'll adjust accordingly, and then it will be up for council to look at and decide if they like it or not. And yes, sorry, Mayor Shannon, I jumped the gun a little bit. If there was anything else council wanted to discuss before that.
I want to bring up the agenda. I know that, but it's a hard one for us to land on. We have here that the agenda has to be to us 3 days before the meeting, which would be I guess Friday. But we usually get it Friday late. How could we do it so that it's easy? Like, I know you're chasing that all week. So how, I think we need to get it earlier because we have the weekend in there. We all have, lives and things that we're committed to on the weekends, and that leaves, a smaller amount of time for us all to be able to get to it with our other duties. Would there be something we could do in that, or what do you? And I know something else would have to be backed up in order to, I just want to get some comments from the rest of council, how they feel about the timeline there. Go ahead, Councillor Ford.
Well, in my first and second terms, the procedural bylaw, if I remember correctly, said 3 working days. For the agenda to be out, and we always used to get it by Thursday close. But I know that's with the some of the workloads and that, like I do hear from administration, sometimes that's tough to do. But like we used to get it on Thursdays all the time, but sometimes we get it Thursday, sometimes we get it Friday.
CEO Miller?
Thank you, Mayor Shannon. We can certainly move the agenda to be published on Thursdays at end of day, but it's not gonna be as inclusive as it is. So there'll be items that will get bumped to the following meeting, because we only have so much time. We have Monday nights our meetings, Tuesday mornings, we meet with directors, we go over all of the agenda items. We already start by Tuesday at noon, we are already starting to work on the agenda items on top of all our other work that we have to do during the day. So we pushed it to Friday with this change because we were struggling to get it out. Maybe the business. Perhaps the business 4 years ago or 5 years ago may not have been as much or I don't know, that enabled them to get them out that quick, or they just said a hard cutoff and it's done, and if your reports are not in and I don't have time to review it, then it's just doesn't make the agenda. So that's the trade-off, right? Is it becomes a smaller package and things get pushed out further. But we have to cry it.
Kayla, sorry, Ms. Parsons, I think you had something to say, then Councillor
That was
Carr.
a little bit of my understanding, from some of the operations prior to my arrival. That if an item, either the item wasn't included or it was included on the agenda as a subject, but the report wasn't attached. And then as the reports came in, they would be added. And then the process got changed that you had to include in the agenda when the report got updated. So it was clear when the report was added after the publishing of the agenda. So with us, we try to make sure that the agenda is published with all of the reports. So council has everything when that agenda is published. There's been a time or two, I know we've said, sorry guys, that item is gonna be on the agenda as soon as we can. But so that's a little bit of the difference too, but that would be the trade-off is, okay, hard cutoff Thursday at noon, you can't submit anything else. So if we don't have it, it's not on the agenda. So the agenda's potentially.
Okay, so that was a problem before, but we now have one extra full-time administration person in that department. How has that helped, or how has that enabled, has that not helped you get streamlined a bit, or?
So, I mean, yes and no. However, I mean, they've only just started, so training is still new, but that really doesn't play a lot into the agenda, and that hasn't. It's it's about getting the agendas items in, having time to review them and then publishing the agenda. And I really always set aside that time to dedicate to the agenda, to try and get those out. So it's more just about the working time, because we have 3 meetings a month. So by the time we finish our meeting on Monday, we have our directors meeting to plan for the next meeting and just to get updated from each other. What's going on in your department? What are your projects? What do we need to correspond about? So we've lost Tuesday morning. We have Tuesday, Wednesday to either get work done from the previous agenda. So amend the bylaws, get the programs, drafted, anything that comes out of the council meeting, as well as preparing the reports for the next agenda. So you kind of Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday, then Thursday, you're really trying to get those reports done, and then it's Friday and you're getting that. So there's just not a lot of time in a week.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the process here. CEO Miller, then Councillor Ford.
Sorry, I did want to say, I can appreciate all of council, how they feel, because sometimes when we're pushing a big package, we're like, oh man, because we read it all, right? And I can appreciate that. And I did just want to say that our goal is to get it out by the Thursday, because we don't like spending Friday afternoons panicking, literally, oh shoot, I want to go home at 5 o'clock and not just starting to print off all the copies. So it's not how we like to spend our Friday either. It's very stressful for us. And so just so it hasn't happened yet, but so our goal is to get it out sooner as well, because it's not how we like to spend our Fridays. And I can appreciate that it's a lot of reading for council as well. I do appreciate that.
It's a conversation to be had. Councillor Ford, then Councillor Carr, then Councillor Bablola.
Just going back to memory, like, back in the day, like, we used to have some pretty thick agendas. But Kayla's 100, or Miss Parsons, sorry, is 100% right. Cause I do remember the agenda coming out on a Thursday, and then Friday, sometimes Saturday, some of the reports would follow, so.
Okay, got it.
So if the agenda comes out, to me, it doesn't matter either way. If the agenda comes out Friday by close, but all of the reports are there, just means I'm doing some reading on the weekend.
Councillor Carr?
Lots of times I do feel the time crunch on the weekend, for whatever reasons. But I can also understand your time crunch during the week. Would it be possible to work 2 weeks in advance, possibly on the agendas instead, to take the pressure off of you and also the pressure off of us? Is that possible, or is that a ridiculous question?
One day.
Councillor Bablola.
Well, Councillor Brad has said what I was going to say,
Yeah.
if we could have a hard deadline that everything that goes to the agenda ends on this day, and then we can work towards getting it out on Thursday. And one reason why this will be very good is because if we have some people that are concerned in the agenda and they need to be informed that they're on the agenda, getting it across to them at the close of work on Friday, sometimes people will not look at it, and we cannot fault them for not looking at it that way. But if we get it to them like on Thursday, then Friday they can know that, okay, on Monday, because some people will plan for a long weekend or something on Monday, and they will just see it, maybe they travel on Friday and get to their destination that Friday, and only see that they have something on the agenda. They plan to come back, and something like that. It gives everybody enough time, and even the council gives us more time to kind of review whatever we want to review.
Absolutely.
Councillor Carr?
One other thing too is when it used to be out on Thursdays, you were able to, how did that work? Where you could, if you didn't have time to get to it, or I can't remember exactly how that worked, you could table it to the next meeting if. Now, Friday, I'm surprised things haven't been tabled, because that's even a tighter timeline.
That is always at council's discretion. I believe we did that with another item where we had added it and council just said, I think it was the offset levy policy. And council said, you know what, we didn't have time to get through all of this. We don't feel comfortable continuing this conversation. Let's just table this till the next meeting. So we had a little bit more time. That is always 100% at your discretion. If we have something on the agenda and you're just saying, guys, this was a massive report, lots of information for us to take in. Not feeling time sensitive, let's put this over to the next agenda to give us a little bit more time with it. Absolutely.
Well, I think we have to have the conversation, I mean, we can work toward something else, but at least now we know where the bottleneck is, or
And as administration, we certainly will continue to try and get that out earlier.
anybody else, any other points brought up on the agenda? On the,
I have some points with regard to the bylaws itself.
okay, go ahead, Counselor Erickson.
With regard to agendas, it's on page 20 of 131. And it reads, it's 8.0. Meeting agendas will be prepared under the direction of the CAO in consultation with the mayor. I propose that it would be read, the meeting agendas will be prepared under the direction of the CAO as approved by the mayor.
Which one is that?
8.0.
And the first one.
Okay, yeah, okay.
So you're proposing a one-word change from consultation to,
It's more than that one word, it's a phrase,
okay,
as approved by, so we delete in consultation with, to be exchanged with, as approved by the mayor.
it is approved by me, but it just doesn't reflect that in here, so,
Right.
Ms. Parsons.
I would suggest, we can look into that for sure and bring back, some advice at the next meeting when we, bring back the revised bylaw. I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, simply because if we're already struggling with time, trying to send things back and forth to get this formal approval will, take more time than less, in my opinion, and the mayor does approve it, but here and there, we might add something quickly at the end, that's a nothing, kind of item that's just like, oh, quickly, let's, throw this on the agenda, we got it done, and, it'll be important for council, so the back and forth formal approval, might start to get a bit tenuous. That's just my off the top of my head thoughts, but we can certainly bring back that for consideration when we do the review.
Well, I do approve it, so I don't think
Yes.
I really don't think a word change, if we want it to be that way, I don't think it's going to change that much, we go back and forth a little bit, but I mean, I think that's workable. What does everybody else feel about that?
Somewhere.
So go ahead, Norm.
I just have, yeah, I'm fine with that. I just have one comment, and I haven't found it in here, but just out of respect, I'm not gonna mention any names. But I can remember back in a day where, a mayor wanted to have an item on the agenda and the CAO refused. So how does that, how does that work in this, in this bylaw here to prevent that from happening?
Ms. Parsons, did you go, CEO Miller?
I'm just gonna do a little bit of review on this issue because I do believe I recently read something that actually specifically said the CAO sets the agenda in consultation. So I need to make sure that that wording suggestion change isn't something against the Municipal Government Act. So we'll come back. We'll come back with this subject.
Counselor Erickson?
I have one other recommendation as well too, and that's under 14.2. It's on page 27 of 131. And it reads, it will be at the discretion of council in consultation with the CAO, which, if any, administration are to be included in the closed session. I propose that it should read, it will be at the discretion of council, period.
But you will need to consult with the CAO as to whether they are going to be presenting or not.
I don't agree. The reason for that is if there is gonna be a closed session with council and the administration is not part of it, then it has to be, this has always got the caveat of the CAO being involved with it. I don't see why it has to be there.
I see what you're saying. I see
I
what you're
think
saying.
I'm not sure if we can be in a closed session without the CEO, except if we are discussing something about the CEO.
Correct.
How are you gonna do the evaluation of the CAO or anybody or anything else if the CAO is gonna be present?
Yeah, that is the way the exception is,
yeah,
because
yeah,
at that
that's the
point, we
exception.
are discussing something about the CEO. So like, I don't even think the NJ supports it that we go into closed
Right.
session without the CEO.
I would agree with that.
Well, if we go into closed session, say if it was a item on the energy, nuclear energy or something like that, and we needed a member of administration who had the information for that, then we would
But that's still,
have to.
Mayor Shannon, that's still within the discretion of council.
But it would go ahead, Ms. Parsons.
It's highly ill-advisable to hold a closed session without your CAO. And I would highly not advise changing this because as a council, you should be working in cooperation with your CAO, your only employee. And so this is working in cooperation with, and I don't know if it is specifically not allowed in the MGA, I have to look at that, but highly ill-advisable to not have your CAO in the room. They are your person who ensures you maintain the MGA. They're your person who makes sure the minutes get recorded. When everyone is out of the room that we would require from the closed session, they make sure that council's following the proper procedures in closed session, et cetera, et cetera. And so excluding your CAO from that is highly ill-advisable. They are your person, they are your consultation, so they should at minimum be consulted. It's always at council's discretion, regardless of the bylaw says in consultation with the CAO. If you're having the, CAO review, that's perfectly acceptable to say, CAO, you need to leave the room, we're doing your review. So it's always at council's discretion in that sense, but this should be a collaborative approach with your administration, your CAO, not something that's like strictly not.
Well, minutes do have to be taken during that and things have to be recorded, so we can't basically do it alone.
You don't record anything in closed session,
Or
you
not
should
record.
record, but if there's motions coming out of closed session, the motions coming out after closed session. And anything that you might, if you're in closed session and you're thinking a motion is gonna come out, they're gonna help you come up with that, draft that, what important information needs to be included in that motion. If you're spending money, you have to include the reserve that you're gonna take it out because administration does not have the authority to remove money from a reserve without a council motion. So it's super important that kind of information gets included. So they are your person. So this should always be collaborative.
Councillor Ford.
If this thing works again. I 100% agree. In all my years on council, this is year number 12. I have never been in a closed session without the CAO being there, unless it's about the review or contract. But with that also being said, using the mayor's example of you're going into a closed session because you're talking nuclear, the CAO will know which director has that information to make sure that council is properly or gets that information properly, whether it's in closed or open session.
Yeah.
So that's my thoughts on it.
Anyone else? CO Miller?
I reckon Councillor Dace is not gonna say anything, so I will speak at Emerging Trends for those who participated in Emerging Trends legal session. Actually, this question was brought forward during the Bear Pit, and basically the response was no, you should never meet without your CAO, without the exception of evaluations. And if you feel you need to meet without your CAO, perhaps it's time to change your CAO. Okay? So if you don't want your CAO in the room for those conversations that we should be having, then that speaks volumes.
Councillor Deuce.
I would just like to say I don't have any issues with the CAO being in a closed session. My opinion is quite often the CAO is the person who has the most information on a particular thing that we're speaking about. And we've had lots of closed sessions in the past several months where it has only been the CAO with us and everybody else has left the room. So I think we will, in my opinion, I would rely on the guidance of the CAO as far as what should be in closed session and shouldn't be, along with Kayla, our privacy person, for them to give us the information that we need on closed sessions and who should be involved in that.
Okay, so I'm hearing that we're gonna leave the clause in. Is that? Okay. Anything else on this document that anybody else sees that they would want to change? Nobody? Okay, well, we will be looking for a motion. Councillor Deuce?
I do believe Ms. Parsons had a.
Yes, I was just going to say, Ms. Parsons, could you lead us?
For sure. So a motion to direct administration to bring forward a revised meeting procedures bylaw, specifically with respect to clause 6.2, order of business for regular meetings. To a future council meeting for consideration. I don't think I finished that.
Councillor Carr?
Where do you need something regarding Councillor Erickson's first revision as well?
Let's just say to bring forward a revised meeting procedures bylaw to a future council meeting for further discussion. And then we'll just bring back those two revisions.
Okay.
Don't need to be too specific. Good point. Thank you.
Okay, so Councillor Deuce, are you making that motion?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And all those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? And it is carried. Moving on to unfinished business. There is none. Number 8, current business. We have the snow removal update with Director Fisher. I'm sure we're all excited for this.
I don't know, it's nervous.
Or nervous.
Yeah, we're coming tomorrow. Yeah, they're supposed to be. Then rain.
Logical balance.
That's later in the week. The rain is later in the week, right?
Friday,
Friday.
Saturday,
Yeah.
Sunday.
So I just wanted to come and bring some information. This was a lot of snow this year. Certainly a lot of my operators, actually all of my operators, I don't think have seen this much snow. Some of them weren't even alive. The last time this much snow fell over the area in December. Early in September, or I said September, I meant December. Early in December, we had a bunch of snowfall. Kind of started around the 5th with some lighter snow. Around the 8th, it was pretty heavy in the region. We started snow removal on the 9th of December in town here. So it was a Tuesday, if anybody's keeping track. And sort of between December 8th and 15th, Environment Canada indicated to us that in the region, 30 to 55 centimeters of snow had fallen. That's sort of based on their modeling. They don't do physical measurements anymore with the closure of the flight service station at the airport in 2024. Our ground truthing of those numbers was kind of from our staff. So in that time period, we had staff measure between 45 and 50 centimeters. And then snow kind of kept falling all the way through December. Our neighbors kept a little bit better record than we did. They said that in County of Northern Lights, they had about 60 inches of snow in their public release. It's about 1.5 meters. I don't think we had quite that much fall in town here, but we did have close to a meter, I think. An average December is about 24 centimeters of snow. So just under a foot. That'd be sort of one snow removal, which is about what I would expect when we're budgeting. We budget 4 per year, we try to aim for 1.5 before Christmas, and then the remainder after Christmas if we're planning around that. We did keep some statistics from the time period, because we were watching real close. Town staff worked 2,800 hours, 2,842. That's public works. That doesn't include our admin staff. It doesn't include my extra time. I ran the night shift while we were on River Watch, so that I didn't have to pull staff off to do that. We had 4,388 hours of contracted services time. Most of that is trucking support. We only have 2 trucks and the rest of it had to be hired out. We also had a fairly large number of hours in there. No, not large, but the next largest piece of hours in there would have been some support for our snow dumps to kind of keep pushing the snow around. We had a piece of contract equipment parked in the snow dumps to clear the dumping area and push it up to the top of the hill. For trucking, we had 7 different contractors in circulation through the season. We averaged about 12 contracted trucks per day that we were cleaning snow or removing snow. The peak number of trucks we had was about 21 trucks. We didn't keep very good record of the number of loads we were pulling off of the road. But some of the trucks that were averaging about 20 loads per day, which is sort of about right. When you take into consideration sort of travel distance from the furthest part of town to the snow dump, a little bit of time to queue up there, go back, queue up at the snow blower. They get just under 2 loads an hour, 10-hour days, 20 trucks. A lot of snow that we've moved this season. We did keep real close tabs on how much money we spent. We spent $852,000 on snow this season.
Okay.
426 of that was in December for contracted support. 369 was in the period for most of the snow removal. That was the January 17th. We've obviously had more snow. This is more in line with sort of seasonal snowfall. We spent about $30,000 in additional fuel beyond what I would typically expect to have spent. And then for the period, we spent 27 in sand and salt. When you get a lot of snow like that, though, you stop using it as much because it doesn't do anything but throwing Smarties in the tank. Go ahead.
So I knew it was 4 times a year that we usually budgeted for. I forgot the number attached to that though. Each snow, was it 40,000 for each time we remove
No.
snow in a normal year?
It's we budget about 75,000 in trucking services for each snowfall removal. So about 300,000.
For each, so what?
For total for the year, and then an amount for snow and sand. So we have about $400,000 in outside costs in our budget typically. And then we would expect to spend about a third of it in November, December, and then 2/3 in January to March. So in December, for example, we spent $426,000. We would have probably budgeted, well, we would have had about 100,000 left over from beginning of the year to spend. So this is about 325 more than we would normally spend in December. And then in January, probably about 150 more than we would typically spend, is sort of my guess.
You basically doubled.
Yeah, and like, it was a lot of snow, right? in that time period, we basically went through most roads twice. There was a little bit of like pickup that carried on during working hours afterwards for alleys to catch up. And then, you know, last week we started again. Yeah, so if you go to the next page of the report, actually, we've got about 400,000 budgeted in 2025. You know, this one's not a normal year of snow. We spent a lot more than we would normally. If we were short for 2025, I would be here actually asking for a decision of council to approve the overage. I don't think we are. I think we've got enough because we've been watching over time real tight over the year. We've got some savings in our tax supported budget that just money we didn't spend. So I don't think we are here asking for more money. It's just for information for 2025. And for 2026, we're kind of starting the budget conversations. If we need more money, we'll let you know, hey, we want to add this supplement, but I think we're hoping to not right now. There will snow every year. There's always complaints. We're doing it too fast. We're doing it wrong. We should just be clearing. We should pick it all up. We should start at this side. We should start at that side. We should work 24 hours a day. We shouldn't work at night. We get all complaints from all sides of the spectrum. There are some very legitimate complaints that we did have and some learnings that we had to implement this year. One of them is around our communications with snow removal. At the beginning of the season, our staff were sending out updates that were like, hey, we're in the north end. Hey, we're going to be downtown. We started sending out more specific information as we're doing snow removal now. So you're seeing maps go out with our snow removal. Hey, tomorrow we're working in these areas on these roads between these times. That was a big concern from the community, because we'd say north end, and north end's pretty big. It takes a couple days to clear. So we've added more specificity to our communications around snow clearing. We brought forward a means for businesses to use our snow dumps with a snow removal policy. We've only had a couple of firms sign up after the fact because we hired most of the trucking companies in the area anyways. Our parking ban section in the snow removal policy actually ties our hands with what we can do with snow parking ban enforcement. It says we will not enforce it on these days or these days, and it's only effective Monday, Wednesday, Friday in this area, and Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in this area. It actually ties our hands of our CPOs and what they can do with respect to that. So in the spring, you'll see us probably bring forward an ask to modify that section of the snow policy to get rid of it. It's kind of redundant with our traffic control bylaw anyways, which allows us to tow and fine some we had signed out in advance. School buses, there are some roads that are priority 3 that if they're not cleared effectively, especially when we had the big dumps of snow in December, that are priority 3. So those are kind of the last residential roads that we would do. But they needed cleared before some of the priority 1 roads to be able to have bus service. The other learning is at the top of 103rd Ave in the south end near 110th Street, 110th Avenue. We should consider making that a one-way loop instead of 2-way traffic. So when the buses are going through there or any of our equipment are going through there and you encounter an oncoming vehicle, there's nowhere to pull over to the side of the road. So if all the traffic is going in the same direction, and you're not going to encounter an oncoming vehicle. It's just something to mull about for now. We don't need to make a change, but I think that that's something that would greatly improve our ability to service that area and improve actually the flow of traffic in that area through the winter time. That's kind of the big stuff. It was a lot of money But I think we were well positioned through the year to be able to deal with that shortfall. Certainly don't expect that to be the norm going forward, that amount of snow. If it is, then we have to have some serious conversations about what snow removal looks like, because I don't, that's a lot. Open for questions if you got any. I'll try and share that information.
Anyone have any questions? Councillor Ford?
Not really a question, but more of a comment. So the parking ban that you're talking Monday, Wednesday, Friday, if I remember correctly, that was originally done like that to align with recycling and garbage days.
Yeah, it was, but if you take into consideration like last week, I think the roads that we were clearing. Most days last week, we actually couldn't do any enforcement with it, and the alternative would be like, well, we're not gonna clear this area. And wait for garbage to come through or wait for the snow ban to align. And I don't think you want us to stop the removal activities and reschedule it for another day when we've already cleared the other areas, right? So in terms of just like keeping the crew moving, sometimes we work ahead of where garbage is in the community. And it doesn't make sense to bounce back and forth. Or stop and wait a day so we can enforce. And certainly most of the time we could go around vehicles and it'll all get done or get plowed in a little bit.
Yeah, my last comment would be, when you were talking about, oh, you're not doing it right, or you should start on this end of town or start on that end of town. At the end of the day, kudos to the town staff and the public works for one heck of a job. That was a lot of snow, and I know they busted their butts to try and keep the streets as clean as they could.
And the contractors that we hired as well, they were often doing double duty, working for us and working for another community at the same time.
The hard work does not go unnoticed.
Any other comments? Councillor Deuce?
So, two questions I have. The first one is just around the priorities, like the priority routes. Because one of the questions that I kept getting was how come certain areas were plowed multiple times and other areas of the town wasn't plowed at all for many weeks. So I was just curious how that works with, like, if a snowfall happens and then you clear that area and then it snows 3 days later, does that reset the priority routes or how does that work?
It depends on how much snow falls. There is a little bit in the policy. If we're going through and it only snows an inch, we don't reset the priorities, but there is a threshold in there. When it's over, when we get a snowfall as much as we did at once, we kind of treat that as a major event or extreme event, and we get a little bit more leeway in saying, yeah, we're gonna go back or not. But we did like, some of the priority one routes were done 6 or 7 times, while other places were only done once. So,
Right.
and that's pretty normal.
And my second question is like, what's the state of our equipment right now? Did we have lots of breakdowns or is there something that we could improve on that regard or what?
We didn't have lots of breakdowns. There were a couple of key pieces that when they did break down, we really noticed. So, for example, when the snow blower broke, there was 3 times that it broke. And when that happens, we certainly line up more trucks when we've got the snow blower in use because we can turn, fill them up faster, right? It probably takes twice as long if we have to bucket them instead of using the snowblower. So we only have 1 snowblower, so when that happens, we have to switch gears pretty quick. We end up trying to send trucks home kind of midday as best we can and recalibrate. We could use, there's a couple of pieces that are aging. The sanding truck is getting up there. We had to piece it together a couple times. We could use another blade for the loaders to replace that. We've got it's the cage blade we could use with replacing that is probably got like 1 or 2 more seasons before it's completely threadbare. But we've definitely had to rebuild it this season pretty extensively. And most of our rebuilding, we try to target happening in August, September before we're dealing with snow. And but sort of where we're at with breakdowns. Long term, I think we could probably use some more trucks than we have. We only have 2 dump trucks right now. If we were dealing with more regular big snowfalls, it would be nice to have 4 or 5 probably. And then we wouldn't have to hire out for the smaller snowfalls when they happen. We could pick away at them a little bit slower without the contracted service. My goal is to have all of my staff with their class 3 and air brakes so that I have lots of operational capacity. To put them in the trucks, but I don't have the units right now.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have the skill set in-house internally to do those rebuilds and maintenance on your vehicles, or do you have to go externally for that?
Yes and no, it kind of depends on what fails. So some things go out to another party, some things come in. If they're being done in-house, it usually means I'm pulling 2 of my operations staff off of equipment and putting them into the shop. So I have a very capable team. But that when something breaks down, I'm not just losing the piece of equipment, I am losing several operators who come in to work on it.
Go ahead, Counselor Forsyth.
Yeah, I was just gonna mention as well, like, thank you to you guys for your efforts. I completely understand, the many factors kind of playing into making that difficult. I like seeing here that we have a list of lessons learned. I mean, really, there's no one better than yourselves to sit down at the end of this and think about where we could have went a little better, if at all. You know, and also, if we bought 4 or 5 trucks and then didn't need them, we'd be looking silly for spending that money too. It is interesting, like, I like to hear your thoughts on that, and if there's things that we can do to prepare better, you know, I think we definitely need to look at it without going overboard, obviously, as we don't see this much every year. Also, that street in the south end I'm very familiar with, and it is a mess up there. There is vehicles everywhere, and it is an issue, that's for sure. Anyway, that's all I just wanted to say. I hope we can have further conversations about this and things we can improve on.
I think we would, and certainly, you know, it's a challenge to sometimes book all the trucks. The other one that I think maybe disappeared is with how fast we brought on trucks. We started with a normal amount. You know, we brought on like 9 or 10 trucks to start, and very quickly went, oh, it's not enough vehicles for how much snow we'd have. So it took, I think it was 4 or 5 days before we got enough trucks to keep the snow more fully utilized.
I also like the idea of, you know, if you've got public works guys that want to get their class 3, I mean, helping more people be certified is always a good thing too.
Yeah, it's actually in all of their job descriptions. So when I say,
Oh, yeah.
we have a very high capable team, and that's my expectation. It's written right into their job descriptions.
Anyway, yeah, thank you guys.
Counselor Deuce.
Just a follow-up question, as I sat here and thought about some of this stuff. You mentioned that you really noticed it when the snow blower went down. Just for curiosity's sake, what's the cost of a new snow blower? If we were to add a redundant winter system?
300,000, give or take. Don't hold me to that number, but it's about 300,000 for a similar style to what we have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other house report?
Yeah, just one more comment. One thing, I was out for a drive the other day, and one thing I did notice, and I haven't noticed this before, was there's some areas in town where you don't have to, or you don't really need to remove. And it was good to see, because I saw the snow blower going down the street, just blowing the snow up onto the dike in areas where it would be applicable to do so. I've never seen them do that before.
Me pushing.
There is other towns that do that a lot. I think they blow snow even onto people's lawns and everything, but I think then you're gonna have residents complaining about a lot of other things as well.
We do, and our neighborhood design, like in the summer when you go and drive around, lots of areas have sort of monolithic or rolled curb sidewalk right up against the roadway. That becomes a challenge for pedestrian traffic if we're just pushing it to the side or we're doing that.
Yeah.
If that were sort of the areas where we are looking to do that, usually we've got boulevard between the roadway and the walking surface, right? So we've got a space to put it and get it up off the road. That's the ideal space for that.
And the area that I was speaking about is like along River Road, and they just blew it up onto the dike, which was out of the way, not near the walking path. But back in the day, they used to do blading. And I can remember this happening down 98th Street where they just bladed it off to the side, and just like Mr. Fisher said, that creates issues, especially with a sidewalk, and then you're parking your car on the road and you got a snowdrift to walk over to get to the sidewalk.
Okay, so one thing we can be sure, it's unexpected events like this that do drive change or will identify things we can do better. So that's one good thing about it. It does keep us on our toes. So we're looking for, if no one else has any questions, we're looking for a motion to accept information. Councillor Forsyth.
Sure, I'll move that council accept this report for information. Snow removal update.
Okay, all in favor of that motion? And that is carried. And we will move along to number 2. Our favorite topic, our 2026 tax supported operating budget with Roxanne Edel.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. I am presenting the draft tax supported operating budget for 2026. This is a first look at it. So we are hoping that this will give everybody time to look at, review, consider, and provide some feedback. So tonight I'm going to talk about the funds, some of our process assumptions. We're going to go through some overall highlights, and then we're going to go through each of the departments. The funds, the town, as you are aware, our operating budget is divided into tax supported and utility supported functions. This presentation only addresses the tax supported functions. It excludes the utility functions, which was covered when we discussed the utility operating budget, which was passed back in February. It also includes the Family Resource Network, Parent Education, and Home Visitation, which are all part of FRN. Those sub-departments are fully funded by third parties, and the services are delivered by the town of Peace River. When we put the budget together, we have a decentralized process where department heads put in their input. They put it right into our budgeting software. Corporate services review, departmental reviews, CAO reviews. We calculate the municipal requisition after we have a first look at what's been entered into the budget. This year we passed an interim budget so that we could continue operations and provide us a little more time to finish putting the budget together. And now we're at the stage where we're opening it up for council review, letting you guys see what we've got, and having the opportunity for discussion and feedback. Over the next while, not tonight, but over the next while, we'll be eventually coming to final approval and then bringing forward the 3-year operating plan. Some of the assumptions that went into this budget, the budgeted figures were compiled using prior year trends, estimates, and known and anticipated inflationary pressure. Inflation's been a pretty constant factor over the last few years. The municipal requisition, we've got a targeted 2.5% increase from prior year actual. The revenues include capital contributions from third parties, and we've got an expense for contribution to capital reserves that matches that capital revenue. That's new for this year. In the past, we omitted the capital, but we wanted to give you guys a full picture of everything that comes in and goes out. Also, an assumption was that we would maintain or increase service levels. And the year-to-date information has been provided, but we're still working on year end, so it's still subject to further adjustments. Salaries and benefits. The collective agreement was last negotiated in 2024 and had a 2.6% increase for unionized staff back in 2026. The non-unionized staff increase of 2.6% was passed, I believe, by council motion back in 2024 as well. We've assumed that all positions would be filled, and we've entered increases for CPP, EI, and our benefits. As with the utility budget, we split the expenses between fixed and discretionary. We thought that provided better information regarding what we can and cannot control. We included amortization expense, and we excluded, principal repayment on long-term debt is excluded. It uses cash, but it's not an actual expense. So I'm starting with some overall pictures. So overall, our revenues, 44% are property tax, 11% is requisitions. And essentially, this am I not? And that blue square, those together is what goes out on our tax notices. So if we were just looking at our tax notices, the education and housing requisitions is 20% of what goes out on our tax notices that we collect. And that's money that comes in and we shoot it right out to other parties. The provincial government and North Peace Housing. So that blue square looks like a significant chunk, but it's money we collect. It's not money that's ours. Also included in there are municipal grants. We've got a transfer from reserve to balance off the amortization. And franchise fees are the next biggest piece in there. Moving on to our operating expenses, we've got fixed expenses of roughly 67%, 19 point.
I asked one question about the other grant franchise fees, that would be ATCO.
Yeah, the ATCO gas and the electricity franchise fees. Yeah. Fixed expenses, 19.9 million, 67%. Discretionary expenses of 19%, and then the required discretionary items that we have some semblance of control over, but not really, 14%. Regarding our fixed expenses, we've got roughly 45% in salaries and benefits, amortization of 21% at 4.19 million. Utilities, 1.6 million. And you can see the dark blue bar with the requisitions, education and housing, the 3.3 million. So collected and out. We have no control over that one.
Can I ask one quick question?
Absolutely.
You had mentioned here that you are factoring in no vacancy rate in the budget for employees. Are we currently fully staffed or?
Director.
I would love to see a new director of corporate services.
Is that the only staff member that we're looking to hire right now, or are we?
No, we have. That would be a
higher.
no.
Like vacant positions.
Vacant existing positions, I think
The
that's
three.
the one, isn't it?
No, I've got one of them.
Oh, you have a lead missing?
Yeah.
Yes.
And I
And on that.
one FTE.
Yeah.
As of last week.
Oh, right.
And there might be one vacancy in the fire department. I don't think we're looking to hire.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like
so,
Okay,
we have a need for more position parts, but already vacant at the moment. That's-
thank you.
discretionary expenses, so these are the items that we have a little bit of control over. But as we discussed when we talked about the utility budget, you can push the maintenance on your vehicle, but sometimes you wind up paying for it further down the road. So keeping up on maintenance helps keep the snow blower operational, except for when we get 4 times the normal amount of snow. So within the, discretionary, I've split it between the required and the stuff we have a little more choice in. I will point out that I've got contracted services in both. On the required, that dark blue bar, that 2.2 million, that is the RCMP contract, and I put it under the required discretionary, separate from the other, because I believe it takes 12 months notice if we're gonna make any changes. So if we are to make changes on that one, we need a lot of lead time. Whereas with our other contracted services, we may or may not have a little more flexibility in terms of what we do and do not do.
I have a question.
Absolutely.
That advertising budget that is 3%. Is that advertising budget overall our whole organization, or are there like, do different departments have different advertising?
That is for the entire town. That is for all departments. This is, I thought I'd start with overall for the town, and then we'll go into each department, and you will see that most departments do have a small advertising, and I probably threw promotional into there as well. So promotional materials and items like that, I lumped them together.
Okay, so the 251,600 here is the organization wide. Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
One more.
Oh,
Just one.
absolutely.
How about the consulting fees? Is that this one, the whole community, organization wide as well, the 413 to 4% there, or?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Okay, so overall for the budget, I gave you 2 charts here. So the first one is showing the 2025 budget as it was presented. And I almost had a heart attack when I saw 20.87%. And then I realized that in the 2025 budget, we had a transfer from reserves of $3.4 million that was shown as a negative expense. So I moved it to a revenue to match the presentation that we have for 2026. And when I did that, the change was only 5.9. So I normalized the 2025 transfer from reserves so that it showed things more accurately. So overall for the 2026 budget, revenues of 29.5 million, expenses of 29.5 million compared to normalized 27.8 on the year before, for an overall increase of 5.9%. And the other change for 2026 is we did include the capital revenue and transfer to capital reserve, as I previously mentioned. Okay, starting with the departments with general municipal revenues. We've got a lot of lines for the different taxes, residential, commercial, farm. We show our levies, the education levies, North Peace housing levies. Those are the requisitions that we turn around and pass on. We've got the GILT for the federal properties, that's grants in lieu of taxes. The federal government does not pay us property tax. We submit the information and they pay us a grant that coincidentally matches the amount of property tax we would otherwise charge. We've got interest on receivables of 400,000 and interest on investments of 435,000. And then we've got the transfer from reserve at the bottom of 3.5 million, which was the amount we needed to balance off our amortization expense, about half our amortization expense for the overall organization. The taxes overall, it's an increase of 2.5% from the previous year. The expenses under general municipal, we've got the requisitions that I've talked a lot about of $3.3 million, a little bit of miscellaneous items. For overall general municipal expenses of $3.3 million. And when you take the general municipal revenues less the expenses, you've got $19.7 million. That money then gets used by other departments that it's to share the tax with everybody else. Any questions on that piece? No. Okay, moving on to the administrative part of general government. We've got general government grant of 118,000. That's the LGFF operating grant from the province. We've got tax certificates. We've got miscellaneous revenue under health and safety for $29,000. Total revenues under this section are $163,000. Expenses under governance, that's council. Salaries and benefits of $290,000. Software, insurance, other expenses, including under discretionary for consultant, travel, training, promotional materials come to $203,000. I believe that there's a little extra in the consulting and training, given that it's first year for council cycle. So I believe there's extra training included in the first year. Yes.
So total governance expenses come to $515,000. Next section, we've got election expenses, which were included for the comparatives because we've got nothing budgeted for 2026. And then we have legislative services. In 2025, we shifted a couple of positions out of administration and corporate services and set up the legislative services department. So for 2026, we're showing their budget separate. All of these items, the salaries, the expenses, the legislative services expenses coming to $267,000 were previously in corporate services and administration. General government, this is includes the audit fees, some insurance, legal fees. It also includes grants to groups. That's the $55,000 at the bottom under the discretionary expenses. Comes to $186,000. Administration. This is the CAO department, the whole department, not just her. Salaries of $360,000, amortization of 73,000 buildings, 36,000 for equipment. We've got some travel, some training, and other expenses, things like staff appreciation that we want to make sure everybody feels valued. Total admin expenses come to $578,000.
Is that? What, this is the, what department is that? Like
This is administration. This was the CAO and her staff.
Okay,
Corporate services, salaries and benefits, and other fixed expenses totaling $280,000. Office expenses, we've got relocation and moving expenses in there because we are hoping for a new director of corporate services. Total expenses for this department come to $317,000. Information systems, again, we've got salaries and software as fixed expenses. Under discretionary, we've got contracted services. We have a company called iTeam that we have on a contract to provide additional IT support for things that can be done remotely. Alex is our boots on the ground here and he handles a lot of stuff, but when you're doing major security upgrades, you want to have somebody else involved. So total IT coming to $323,000. Communications, fixed expenses of $139,000, discretionary of $118,000. Total communication of $257,000.
This is a question on that.
Absolutely.
Just a quick question about the consultant fees on there. What would we need consultants for as far as that goes? We didn't have anything budgeted last year and year to date, we've only spent $2,000. So why are we budgeting 40,000 on that?
We have no redundancy, so. The consultant one, I intend, or I would hope to do a communications review. So have somebody externally come in and do a communications review to help us establish where we can improve and give us some recommendations on improving both internal and external communications.
so what would the contracted part be then? He was asking about the consultant fees and the,
For the contracted services, we have
Would be-
zero redundancy. In the absence of our communication person, we are at risk. So, for example, he's on vacation right now and we have very minimal backup. So the intention is to find somebody either local or a service, part-time, contract them as required, so we have some redundancy because we are vulnerable. Having communications is so key, and having one person, relying on one person, we're at risk.
Thank you.
Okay, on to finance. Okay, so fixed expenses of $473,000, discretionary of $41,000 for total expenses of $515,000. Human resources. Fixed expense of $277,000, discretionary of $131,000, coming to a total of $409,000.
how many people are in that department?
Human resources, that's human resources and payroll, that includes all the benefits. I can't remember if there's a portion of some admin support there.
You're right.
Oh, now you're off.
Sorry, exactly. If I can just speak, I think it's important, I just want to say, not to look at the salary number and say, oh, how many people are in this department? And then divide it kind of quickly math, because pieces of my salary and others get allocated across the
Yeah.
organization. And also, we make it very specific, so somebody can't look and go, oh, I know Johnny's making X, because he's the only one in that department and that's the salary. We
Yeah.
try to protect confidentiality, so you can't just look at the salary number and if that's kind of the direction, oh, how much is the salary fund on persons? You can't look at that, because there's certain positions, health and safety, and that they
Yeah.
get allocated around to all of the organization.
I was looking at it because I was thinking human resources must be pretty special if they're getting an $18,000 staff appreciation party, but that must be.
Oh, they
allocated.
For everybody.
Well, she's good.
Yeah, so that's the award, service awards and, you know, things like that are our annual part, yeah. Okay, but I did want to caution council for that too, right? So.
Thanks, because I did do that as well, so thank you.
And I just have one additional question in that department. We're budgeting relocation and moving expenses every year.
Mhm.
In that department, are we hiring for that department?
This is the human resources, so we were able to budget the
oh, okay.
moving for corporate services, because we've got a position that we're trying to fill. But we don't know 6 months from now if another department's going to need.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so moving on. Taxation department. This includes the tax exemptions, that 220,000 under the fixed expenses. That's the exemptions under the COPTR regulation, community organization property tax exemption regulation. That's mandated by a regulation under the NGA. The contracted services, 83,000, that's to have our property assessments done.
What are honorariums for?
That is, if we have an appeal of an assessment and it goes to the assessment review board, we have 2 members on that board that would have honorarias. And I believe one of them is getting trained this year, so he'll have honoraria while he's training.
May 25th. Oh, March 25th, sorry.
We've also budgeted a little bit for bad debt expense. Despite our best efforts, sometimes there are some items that we just can't collect. Total taxation expenses of $365,000. Health and safety, fixed expenses of $100,000. Discretionary expenses of $55,000. Health and safety week, which the entire organization participates in with courses and training and just sessions for basically pretty much anything anybody, every department could participate in. That's also included under here, even though it touches, again, the whole organization. So total health and safety expenses coming to $156,000.
So the 10,000, I see it's up, about 4,000 or so, like between, for the training and development. So are you expecting more training this year for some?
It could be that some of our offerings have a different price point than what we did last year. I know we had some, it was called a RET training, and I believe they want to open it up to more this year. I remember seeing that as a specific line item, and that cost a little bit, but it was very, very valuable. So it's based on what we're offering for that period.
So if this is a line budget, line by line budget, you'd, we'd see that.
You would see.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And just a question on my part here, the miscellaneous expenses of 28,000, what might that encompass?
I believe that also includes some of the health and safety week items.
The,
Our PIRs.
yeah, is it PIR? The
Probably.
I think it's the WCB PIR.
Refund.
The
What's it
refund
called?
was under
Is it-
miscellaneous.
Is that elsewhere?
It was under revenues.
No, but it's an
There's an
expense when we pay it
expense.
out.
Yeah.
When we do the cars,
Yes.
we get the
Yeah,
yeah,
revenue
the
in.
And then
expense.
we pay it
The
out.
expense goes out,
Yeah.
cause they get, we share
Yeah.
half the PIR with the staff and then the other half goes to the
Yeah.
program.
Yeah, that would be it too.
What is PIR?
Partners and injury, so when we do
Yeah.
really great in our WCB, and we are core, so we pass our core. So we're certified there, and then it's based on our performance in WCD. So part of our premiums are based on it. But also we get a refund check depending on our performance, based on comparatives and so then the
It offsets some of the
expense, and we invest it back into training and also reward them with a little. So last year,
Yeah.
I think we got a was it $25 gift card
Something like
each?
that.
Yeah, I think so. I'll just take a look at that's actually.
Yeah. Okay, so town hall, that's the cost of the facility. We do have interest in long-term debt on there for $30,000. We left it in there, but depending on whether or not we do wind up needing a debenture for renovations or not, we may or may not need to remove it. But we left it as a placeholder for now. Discretionary expenses include repairs and maintenance. Total cost of the building, $200,000. Total general government expenses of $4,902,000. $92,000. Yes. Okay. Any more questions on that section? That's all the overall general administration. No. Okay, moving on to protective services, revenues. RCMP and police administration, we've got some grant revenue, the provincial grant of $364,000. Municipal grant, we have one RCMP position that we share with one of our municipal neighbors, so we pay for it and then they reimburse us half. Under the CPO program, we've got some fine revenue. Also under protective services is the fire. So the next page shows the fire revenues. So there again, we've got the Northern Lights Fire Services Agreement in there. We've got $75,000 in costs that we recover, so items that we pay for that we get reimbursed for from our neighbors. Business licenses, $90,000 for total protective services revenue of $1.2 million.
I have a couple questions. And the revenue side on the first page there for parking fines and other fines. I know from various reports that we've seen, there are several tickets issued every report. Where does that money show up? As far as fines and bylaw tickets?
Some of them show up as court fines.
Under the other fines.
Yes.
Just under the other fines?
Yes, there it
Okay.
is.
Under 222.
And my second question is the business licenses, is that the licenses that people pay like the $150
Yes,
a month? Was that not attributed to Economic Development Department previously? Because that formed part of the Economic Development budget when I was sitting on that committee. So I'm just curious why we would put that in protective services.
we put it under bylaw because we collect it as a bylaw function.
Okay.
No, you're.
Yeah.
Honestly, of chocolate, you're right, we use that to support,
Okay,
but it's always been classified under.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so first portion of protective services is the RCMP. So we've got some administrative staff at the RCMP station. Total expenses of $285,000. RCMP operations, $2.2 million under contracted services. That's the required discretionary that I touched on earlier. Bylaw enforcement. We've got fixed expenses of $40,000, discretionary of $16,000, total bylaw of $57,000. Animal bylaw, contracted services, $46,000. That's the funds that we pay for animal control. CPO program, we've got fixed expenses of $365,000, discretionary of $108,000. Last year was the first year for the program, so I think there's still some changes and development and basically, you know, they learned a lot last year and are still looking at tweaks for the upcoming year. Moving on to fire protection, we've got admin costs of $795,000, which does include the amortization. Discretionary expenses of $98,000, total fire protection admin of $893,000. The fire operations, fixed expenses of $60,000 and discretionary of $323,000. And the fire hall, fixed of $154,000 and discretionary of $16,000. Total fire hall expenses of $170,000. Emergency management, we've got a little bit of amortization in there, training and development. You will see that the prior year actuals has a huge miscellaneous expenses and a certain amount for salaries. That was from our ESS that was held back in June, I want to say. So we've been reimbursed for those costs. We don't plan on being an emergency center. But when we are, that's where the expenses wind up. Other protective services, fixed expenses of $138,000, admin of $140,000, total protective services expenses of $4.9 million. Any questions?
I didn't see it mentioned anywhere here. What does our year end run? When is our year end?
The year end is December.
Okay.
Okay, so moving on to infrastructure and development, because we don't have toll roads, there's limited ways that these guys can, this department can generate revenues. So you see under facilities, we've got a little bit of a grant revenue that is an emergent energy management grant program, and our taxi pass program also shows up under transportation revenues.
Speaking of the taxi program, was it not, did we not start a gradual decline of, because I see here that it has the same numbers in it for the 2 years.
It's should be the revenue side. It would be the revenue side that you would see the increase.
Yeah.
Not
Okay,
the expense
The
side.
expense should stay the same, but the revenues are increasing.
Oh, gotcha,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Is it extra $5 or whatever,
Yeah.
right?
I was on the wrong spot, sorry.
The color of the revenues. The other side, see.
And just one question, how come we're putting that in infrastructure and development instead of community services?
Transportation.
Yeah,
Just transportation.
yeah, it's just, yeah. The number.
Yeah.
Pat's gonna start doing it.
Okay, so moving on to infrastructure administration expenses, we've got a little bit of salaries and benefits, but the bulk of it is amortization expense. So there's a lot of infrastructure that we have and we're amortizing it over 20, 30 Discretionary expenses, totaling $91,000 for total infrastructure admin of $2.9 million. Operations administration, fixed expenses of $175,000, discretionary of $12,000, total coming to $187,000. Operations, salaries and benefits are the bulk of that, coming to total fixed expenses of $2.3 million. Discretionary expenses, so things like fuel, repairs and maintenance, all the stuff that keeps the crews on the road, coming to $520,000 for total operations of $2.8 million. Roads, fixed expenses of $44,000. There was a bump to contracted services and contracted equipment. Given what December looked like, we did throw a little extra in there for January. So roads expenses coming to $802,000. Moving on to facilities, fixed expenses of $339,000, discretionary of $14,000 for a total of $354,000. And then public transportation, this is the Taxi Pass program, with expenses of $246,000. That's where the books are redeemed and we pay the taxi drivers. Total infrastructure and development expenses of $7.39 million. Any questions?
I had one question. Okay. It was on the vehicle costs, it was down $120,000. Is that because we bought out so many leases?
I believe so, but I'd
Okay.
have to look for sure to
Okay,
confirm it. Public health and social services. So this includes FCSS with provincial grants of $190,000. Our municipal partners also contribute to the FCS program of about $73,000. We have a little bit of programs for seniors that generate a little bit of revenue. Some community development items. Moving on to FRN. The 520, FRN, Family Resource Network, 521 Parent Education, and 522 Home Visitation, they're all part of the FRN grant. And the revenues and the expenses for these three sections all match. If we don't spend the government money, they claw it back. So we make sure that it matches to the dollar. And a little bit of cemetery revenue. So public health and social services revenue coming to $815,000. Starting with the FCSS administration, we've got some salaries and benefits, a little bit of amortization in there, fixed expenses of $263,000, discretionary expenses of almost $14,000, excuse me. FCSS administration of $277,000. Seniors program, fixed expenses of $167,000. Discretionary items coming to $43,000, total senior expenses of $210,000. The family programming, program costs of $5,300. The youth and children programming costs of $4,400. Community development, we've got the fixed costs of insurance and some discretionary expenses, including grants to organizations. Those are FCSS grants to groups. Total coming to $69,670. Other community development items, discretionary expenses of $34,750. Next, Family Resource Network. Total expenses of $180,880. Parent education. With expenses coming to $150,440 and home visitation. Coming to $169,960. Again, that matches the FRN grant. Cemetery, we've got a little bit of expense there, $9,100. Health services, that is our support for the physician retention committee. That comes to $32,000. So public health and social services in total, $1.1 million. What's that mean? Okay. Okay.
Maybe.
Any questions? Nope. Okay. Planning and development. Building permit revenues. In the past, we only budgeted for the portion of the revenue that we retained. We only keep 25%, 75% goes on to, I believe, safety codes. Now we're budgeting 100% and budgeting for the costs to pay. So we're including the total revenue, total expense, whereas before we only included and budgeted for the net that we retained. So that's why there's that big jump. Economic development, provincial grant has been included in there for $115,000. So total planning and development revenue of $186,000.
And that's a conditional grant, so we haven't. Which is not officially received yet.
It's a red grant application.
Yes, but, okay.
Yeah. Planning and development, fixed expenses of $296,000. Discretionary expenses of $112,000, total expenses coming to $409,000. Community development, the administration piece of it, fixed expenses of $7,700 and discretionary expenses of $94,000, coming to a total of $102,000. Economic development, admin, fixed expenses of $124,000, discretionary expenses of $268,000, total coming to $393,000.
So with the contracted services in there, that would be. Would that be? People like Ballad Group or?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Economic development, tourism. Discretionary expenses of $99,800. Total planning and development services expenses of just over $1 million. Okay, any questions? Parks, recreation and culture.
Sorry, can I just go back?
Absolutely.
One question on the advertising on the economic development and tourism, is that the proposed marketing plan that we're hoping to do?
Yes.
Okay.
Parks, recreation and culture. The administration, conditional grants. We've got the municipal grants, the ICF funding from our partners of $274,000. We've included the capital portion of the ICF grants of $504,000. Programs, $33,000 in revenues, the pool, $755,000. And you'll see that a lot of these have little chunks of the ICF. So the pool includes the $518,000 for the ICF. Same with the water park, the sports fields, there's a little bit for rental, but a lot of these, you'll see the ICF funding is a pretty common line item for most of the items in here.
So do you own that vending machine? Is that why you're getting
No,
the,
we have a lease arrangement,
okay, gotcha.
at the pool and at the Baytex. A revenue arrangement technically.
Okay.
For both, yeah.
So multiplex, we've got program revenue, leases, the municipal ICF grant. The arena, we've got rentals of $192,000, field house, total revenues of 108. The lease for the fitness center, $49,000. The museum, again, we've got ICF revenues in there. Same with the library. Athabasca Hall, rentals and ICF funding. The log cabin is no more, so we've kept it in there for comparative purposes. Total Parks, Recreation and Culture revenues of $3.8 million. The operating ICF grants are right around $2.5 million.
Just have a question regarding the ski hill, the municipal grant there. It's down 20,000, almost 21,000.
So money we lent them.
Is that the money we lent them?
Scrolling.
No, we give them over last year. Because on it last year, we forgave them.
55? I'm sorry, which,
Oh, 738 right here.
738 expense?
The revenues.
Oh, revenues. It could be the ICFs because it is based on the previous year's actuals,
Okay.
so they will always fluctuate. Yeah,
Okay.
Oh, and it's the municipal one.
that would be a bit of my first thought on why.
Yes.
Yeah.
Revenues. Admin expenses for recreation, I believe that's. Where we're at. Okay, again, it includes a lot of amortization, fixed expenses coming to $1.6 million and amortization being probably about 1.2 of that. Discretionary expenses, 526,000, including the 500,000 contribution to capital reserve, where we took the municipal capital grant and putting it into reserve for future capital purchases. Recreation programs, fixed expenses of 78,000, discretionary expenses of $89,000.
What would be, I'm just gonna back up a bit, like a bad debt expense, what would be a bad debt in recreation and culture?
We charge a lot of groups and invoice them.
Gotcha.
We've got it's a small provision in case something happens. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Recreation program expenses totaling $168,000. Moving on to the pool. Fixed expenses coming to $916,000. Discretionary expenses on the next page going at $290,000, including repairs and maintenance, chemicals, all the stuff that keeps us safe while we're there. Pool expenses coming to $1.2 million.
Boy, that gas and power sure shows up in a big way, eh?
Oh, it really does. Water park, fixed expenses, $60,000. Most of it is water, as Mayor Shannon identified. Discretionary expenses, $21,000. Total expenses of $82,000. The sports fields, fixed expenses, $24,000. Discretionary expenses of $17,000, total sports fields expenses coming to $42,000. Ball fields, the ball diamonds, fixed expenses of $11,000. Discretionary expenses of $15,000, total ball fields, ball diamond expenses of $27,000. And then all the parks that we have, fixed expenses of $324,000, discretionary expenses of $574,000, total parks expenses of $898,000.
Just a quick question about the water that's on each of these, like $37,000 for water for the parks. Is that, what's that for? Is that like watering trees or grass?
Irrigation.
Irrigation,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, a lot of sites that are irrigated,
okay.
plus the watering of the water that goes to watering the plants and flowers and
Gotcha, okay.
Trails, all discretionary expenses of $287,000. Ski hill, fixed expenses of $120,000 plus discretionary expenses of $157,000. Total ski hill expenses of $277,000. Moving on to the Baytex, the multiplex, fixed expenses of $538,000. Discretionary expenses coming to $76,370, total multiplex expenses of $614,000. The portion for the arena, fixed expenses of $462,000. Discretionary expenses of $271,000, total arena expenses of $733,000. The field house, again, fixed expenses of $90,000 and discretionary expenses of $36,000 and total expenses of $127,000. You'll notice that each of these areas has their own utilities. We don't have separate meters for each of them, so we allocate each bill according to what we've determined the correct percentage to be. So we don't pay on separate meters for each of them. So just wanted to put that out, that the Baytex as a whole, we've split the utilities according to each of the functions.
When you talk about the power here, the utilities, under the utilities for the arena, do you guys have ways to try and save, like, do you use LED lighting? Do you put the lights a little dimmer in places where they don't have to be? Do you, like, I just cannot wrap my head around that kind of expenses, and I know we're not in control of that, but there's probably limited movement we could make there.
Yeah.
Actually, what would you say about that?
we've done everything to be as energy efficient as possible there. So our change room lighting doesn't turn on until you walk into the room.
Candlelight.
Yeah. At some points, yes. All of the lights are on sensors in every separate room. All of our lighting is all LED lighting throughout the entire building. We've got the highest efficiency boilers, heating. There's not much more we can do other than shutting down sections of, yeah.
Just had to ask.
Yes, absolutely. It's probably your most efficient location in terms of everything that you could possibly do. It's not where our energy manager he hasn't even looked at it
Okay.
because there's nothing left to do.
Yeah.
Do you know, if I may just pipe in, we saved significantly once they reduced the carbon tax or eliminated the carbon
Yeah,
tax.
so,
So we're
yeah.
scared if the
Massive.
carbon tax comes back, because it's a huge impact on us.
Yeah.
And just to back that up a little bit, has there been any talk or thoughts about, like, it's got the Baytex has a huge roof on it, have we thought about installing solar panels or anything, or does that not make sense for that building?
I'd have to I would defer that one to our engineer. There was an initial conversation when they were constructing the facility. But we needed to focus on the facility and getting it up and running. So there is possibility of it, whether there's a good payback on it. I would have to defer that part of it.
Okay, thank you.
It's really, reliant on grant funding to make economic sense.
Mhm.
But we haven't done a business case on it. So I think that there are other facilities that would also be worth looking at that are, they already have capital kind of conceptualized that are probably a better choice.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so fitness center is the next piece. Again, fixed expenses, mostly utilities of $20,000. A little bit for discretionary, total fitness center expenses of $22,000.
And this is the fitness center that's leased out in there, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
The museum, fixed expenses of $275,000. Discretionary expenses of $49,960. Total museum expenses of $325,000. Library, fixed expenses of $38,000, discretionary of $472,000. The contracted services, that's the funding that we provide to the library board. Moving on to Athabasca Hall, fixed expenses of $40,000, again, mostly utilities. Discretionary expenses of $32,000, total cost of $72,000. The NAR building, fixed expenses of $23,000, discretionary of $33,000, total costs of $57,000. The log cabin, no expenses. Total parks and recreation, $7.6 million. On to our tax supported reserves. This is based on budget, depending on where year end comes in. Things might change, but we've got amortization being added back, the contribution from reserve coming out, the items from the capital budget, the funding and the expenditures, for a total change in 2026 of minus $2.4 million, leaving our estimated reserves at the end of 2026 at 7.4. That was a lot of information. I know it's going to take you guys some time to kind of go through. I went through that at super speed. I didn't think you guys wanted to hear me go through it line by line by line on every single category. But it will be brought back to a future meeting for future discussion. And I believe that if you guys want further information or us to peel into something specific when we do bring it back, if you email CAO Miller or probably CAO Miller would be the best option. We can compile anything that you want us to peel into further when we do bring it back.
I have one question. If we could just back up to the library contracted services being for 2026, 451, is that the total amount that we're giving them, including ICF, or what would that?
No, it's not. It's the library system.
Both, yeah.
Peace Library System and
Yeah, okay.
yeah. So there's two.
Yeah, so they'd be in there too.
47,000
Yeah.
and change for the library system and the rest to the local library.
Okay, that makes sense then. Well, that was quite the exercise. Thank you, I think.
If I may just ask one question about the reserves. 2 years ago, December 31st, 2024, we had $12.4 million in tax supported reserves. Then in 2025, 9.9, and now we're estimating that it's gonna be 7.4. Are we overspending, or why are reserves dropping
This
and
is-
not growing?
Based on budget, we haven't finished the books for 2025, so I don't have a firm number on where 2025 actually has landed.
Okay,
So once we finish off 2025, we'll have a better picture as to where everything actually lands.
Okay. Okay,
If you are concerned, we do have a very healthy cash balance right now. And it has been steadily growing. So when I started here, we had reserves on the books that were not funded. Now our reserves are fully funded,
okay.
which is a position that we want to be in.
That was gonna be my next question is how much cash do we have on hand? Because on the surface, looking at this, we're overspending by about $2.5 million a year out of our reserves. So my concern is that if we keep doing that, in 3 years' time, we're gonna not have nothing left sitting on the books and reserves, right? If you're looking at this.
I totally understand where you're coming from, yes. And that's where this is based on budget. Hopefully the actual is not as big a draw.
Okay.
If I can speak.
Sorry, I'm busy, still looking.
So before I had to take my leave was the last time I looked at budget and I pushed what I could to Rox. But I haven't truly given a final look through when it's all kind of put together until myself last night. And even the budget number, I'm like, ooh, and I want to make sure we have the right numbers in there because
Yeah.
it may have just kind of, it was a new thing. And I felt it should be demonstrated to show our
Yeah.
reserves and the impact, right? But I'm not 100% convinced we have the right
Yes.
numbers. And initially I got a little ooh,
Yeah.
and I don't feel, my gut doesn't tell me that should be happening, right? So I need to look
Yeah.
at things. And then I'll have some adjustments too. I noticed a couple things, like just quick glance last night. I'm actually, I did want to say, and I'll show on a presentation on the next presentation. But it is, again, it's a 2.5% increase on the municipal requisition. So that doesn't necessarily mean your tax bill is gonna go up 2.5%, right? Because if our assessment value grew to cover that, 2.5% equals $319,000 more we're taking out of the community this year, or asking to take, I mean, over last year. So just to kind of give you that idea. And then I'm reconciling, I'm just looking right away, because when I saw the one thing, 6%, I'm like, ooh, $1 million. But I'm looking and reconciling that difference. So for example, I know there's an additional 200,000 in expenses I put in for the snow
Yeah.
removal.
And also including the 500,000 for the capital revenue.
I just said bingo, there's my 500,000, because I could not reconcile it, like just on my head, because I had this little panic, like, no way, we went up $1 million. But there's that
Yeah.
500,000, there's the 200,000 for snow removal, 2.6% on salaries, on budget is 190,000 over last year. I was just quickly looking here at the amortization. We've budgeted 264,540 more in amortization expense. Which I knew that's one of the numbers, like, why?
Yeah.
Because we haven't really.
And we did change the policy in 2025.
Oh, and sped up our
And sped up our
amortization.
amortization.
So some of these, I'm just trying to reconcile why those numbers, but then I said, I just found my other 500. When that capital transfer to capital is showing an expense, but we didn't have that in there last year.
No,
So there was my other 500,000. And of course, we have the new position of the EA. And the CPO. And I know we've really upped the water. Because we've been under budgeting the water. And finally, again, we can't argue that they need to be two separate funds, right? Without properly metering our facilities and charging it out, right? If we want the water utilities to be self-funded, that they need to be billing us appropriately. And so it's just this year, I think we
Yeah.
finally have every facility,
meter.
well, except that, and the multiplex is still metered, we're just out in the
Yes.
bill.
Yeah.
To get true costs, and man, when you true it up, you can see how much money we were not properly recording, which also impacts the money from ICFs, right? Because if we're spending 100,000 on water, and we were only charging ourselves 20,000. We weren't properly allocating or collecting those costs as well. So I'm trying to do a comparative right now to even see how much. Because last year we finally got meters and all the facilities, it's more true, so I took those numbers are not 100%, because not everything got metered until near the end, and then I added the 5%, because we did increase, right? And I think it's gonna be, because some of them I upped like 40 or 50,000.
Yeah.
Like the water park, I think, and probably the
Ski hill.
irrigation, so these differences, and we've been bearing that burden, because we've been,
Mm-hmm.
right,
2024 Ski Hill water was
Also.
100,000,
100,000.
and we were budgeting 40, 30.
Yeah, I thought we were only giving them 30 a year. I thought, apparently not. Apparently I was wrong.
Yeah, so I mean, but if you think about the impact on the community, again, it's only 2.5%. When you think about all of the additional things, no cuts in service, right? And when you compare last year's budget to this year's budget, we didn't have the EA in last year's budget. We didn't have the CPO in last year's budget, right? Those were additions that came through the year. So really, we are, again, I hate to put myself on that, but when you think about all the additional costs, just of utilities or whatever, we are bearing that burden and still actually having more services than last year. With only 2.5% increase.
My only concern is, we've stripped out the water rates from the tax supported budget, which we also increased. And now we're looking at another 2.5% increase, possibly, depending on what the final numbers say. So, and then our reserves are also still reducing, so
No, I gotta figure out the reserve.
all signs point to not a very good picture, right? If we're increasing rates on water, increasing rates on taxes, and our reserves are still dropping.
Well, you gotta separate out the water. You can't put the water in that conversation anymore.
No, I know
This
that,
is not
that's
the
what I'm
water
saying,
you
is
serve.
the argument was always that the tax supported budget was supporting the water,
Oh, I
well, it's
see
not
what
so
you're
much
saying.
anymore, right?
But if you go back and you look at, we did it, and again, so these are some of the figures that can come up at the next presentation, I think. Okay, I always argue you can't use CPI because we don't buy a basket of bread goods, right?
Yeah.
And that's CPI is largely that and fuel, right? We buy things like steel that have gone skyrocketing. However, if you took CPI rates for the last 4 years, I think Sam's presentation, it was around 12% or something.
Something like that, yeah.
And we have only charged the community at around 9%, 9.
Overall.
So we are not keeping up pace at all with CPI, even I said CPI doesn't really apply to us. So despite, and I recognize what you're saying, but we are also the service that provides the most services, the government level of government that provides the necessary and services that touch you every day, right? Federal government doesn't touch you every day, the same as the services we provide. So again, I can understand that, but if we have to give it, we are already collecting consistently under CPI, at some point, something has to give. So it has to be a service level discussion then. But I'm gonna work on that reserve thing, because that was to me too, it's like, and my gut tells me that shouldn't be happening, so I'm not sure.
So any other input and feedback can be sent to CAO.
Either one of us, because we will
Mosquito. So that would include.
flush it out.
Would that just include questions, or does that include comments where we'd like to see numbers increase, or,
I think either one,
Either one.
or both,
okay, everyone?
We'll do
How
what
about
we
her?
can, and
yeah.
No, that sounds good, and then now approximately, would it be back at the next GMP or before, or roughly, when do you think?
next GMP.
How long do we have to give in feedback?
Oh. Well, the sooner you can give us the feedback, obviously, the better.
Better.
Then we gotta spin our magic and work there in between, yeah.
Yeah.
But the budget, I can't see coming back before GMP.
Okay, thank
Unless
you.
we plan a special meeting.
No, that's fine. I just wanted a timeline of how fast we have to be to think about our questions.
And then we have to have the budget passed though by
Mid-April?
Mid-April.
mid-April to be able to do the mill rate.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no more questions or comments for Ms. Guido, could I get someone to do a motion? You never.
I can do that. Move that council direct administration return the tax support operating budget to a future meeting for further discussion.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. Thank you, Ms. Guido. Must be a little good. Moving on to reports, number 9, February, the monthly development report for 2026, with Director Fisher. Does anyone have any comments or questions for him on this item? But a few things moving. Do you have any comments, Mr. Fisher?
No, we'll see if this turns on. I mostly wanna know if, I changed the format a little bit. I wanna make sure that it's working for you guys and getting council some of the information that you guys are interested in. I wanna clarify that if it is not a deemed complete, application, I'm not tracking the time for that, because that's really on the developer to get that information back to us. So, for example, there is one of those applications that isn't deemed complete, that is outstanding, that is been waiting for them to give us information for over it. We got back to them and said, hey, you're missing these pieces for us to actually process this, please provide that. So that's sitting out there outstanding. I've mentioned it previously to the past council. But just reiterating, legislatively, we have 21 days to deem it complete. Technically, if it's not deemed complete, I either have to issue an extension or cancel the permit and say, hey, you weren't deemed complete, that's it, it's done. So we're working with them, we're leaving it open until they get us that information, rather than just outright canceling it, but just want to highlight that.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the next one, protective services with Director Kress. Director Kress, do you have anything to add to your report?
No. So March was a little bit slow, or February was a little bit slower, just due to the fact of the storms and the cold temperatures. We did a lot of assisting Public Works with snow removal. So we only created 75 files. Year to date is 192. We only have 20 active files on the go. CPOs are assisting with snow removal, working on CPIC access. We just started arriving, Axon body camera equipment just started arriving, so hopefully within the next month or so, we'll have it all ready to go. And then as we're strategic planning alignment, we're just strong, safer, connected community. So we get out doing more foot patrols like downtown at the mall, walking the streets, talking to people. So we're trying to get out there and do more. Yes. And our new guy, Josh Harrison, Ty, is now officially got his appointment. So he is now full active CPO.
Thank you. Councillor Carr has a question for you.
I'm just curious if there's been any movement or any progress on the report on cameras for downtown.
Yes, I put out request what is it, Procada? Sent out an email to them and also NDS. I sent a request for them for approximately 16 cameras downtown. Okay, so I haven't got nothing back on either one yet.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Ford.
Just wanted, not directly with this report, but do we have an answer back yet on the breakdown of the medical call volumes? when it came to the medical assist, if the ambulance was, do we have that breakdown yet?
Not yet. I talked to Chief Harrison and he said all the calls, because they dropped a lot of medical in 2024. So the medicals that they did attend to are either Delta or Echo calls.
Yeah.
Which are serious, or if the ambulance was more than 15 minutes away. But if it was a large or a patient that was in a tight area, then they would call for assistance. He is actually breaking it down for me now as we go, because we need it for Northern Lights as well.
Yeah, and that's why I was asking you, as I think, if I remember correctly, the call for medical assist was 64, so I was hoping to get a breakdown of
Yes.
those three types of calls.
Ask Chief Harris to break it down for us.
Okay, Counselor Carr?
When you actually file criminal charges, is there any way for you to know how many actually get prosecuted and how many actually end up being sentenced?
So we don't do criminal code, we do just strict provincial stuff. And when we get our tickets done, I go through a process called Join. And it tells us whether the Crown withdrew them or not withdrew them. And for example, I had 2 tickets on an individual that had no registration, no insurance, driving, plus he had none of his license or stuff. And they withdrew without any just cause, they withdrew both tickets. Because they never give us an answer.
They don't have to say why they choose.
No, we talked to the head Crown here and asked, why, is there something that we did wrong? And he just says, they talk to the Crown that's on duty, and if the Crown feels that it's too harsh, then they'll withdraw it, so. So we are gonna be setting up another meeting with the Crown to find out why things are getting withdrawn, and we'd like to know the reason why, so
Yeah.
that we can.
That's
Streamline.
reasonable.
But same as the RCMP were telling me that all the trespass charges they laid, they're throwing them out. Because they felt that the unhoused people couldn't afford them, so they're just throwing them out. Which is not making them accountable for
Yeah.
the people or the businesses.
Mhm.
So we will be having a meeting here shortly with the Crown.
Thank you. The next item is number 3, the draft Peace Regional Healthcare Attraction and Retention Committee meeting minutes, and I can speak a little bit to that. We're busy planning the conference for the fall. And that's coming along very nicely. Very excited about that. That'll bring some much needed economic development to town. I think we're looking at 200 participants with their partners or people coming with them. So that's going to be a really major event for us all to look forward to in the fall. Okay, so there's our reports. Could I get a motion? How about Councillor Babalola?
I move that council accept report 9.1 to 9.3 for information.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? And that is carried. So next up, we'll have information on item number 10 would be the council communication package of February 20th, 2026. Are there any questions or comments stemming from that package? Seeing none, would someone like to make the motion? Councillor Forsyth.
I move the council accept item 10.1 for information.
Thank you very much. All in favor of that motion? And that is carried. We will now need a motion to go into closed session. We will not be coming back after the closed session is over. So this will be the last we see of you until the next meeting. So have a great weekend and week, everyone. And I'll get someone to take us into closed. Councillor Deuce does that. All those in favor of